Well, hello, and thank you for joining us again. And this is the September call for Three Principles Scotland. I'm Christian McNeil, based in Glasgow, and I'm absolutely delighted to be in conversation this month with my colleague and friend, George McRae, who's based in Edinburgh. Um, George and I are both involved in attempting to get something called Three Principles Scotland underway. If assuming there's a call for that, and we've been involved in that project for the last year, along with some other people. And George, I met you for the first time, I think, just over a year ago, and I didn't, and I realized I still don't know that much about you, although I have really enjoyed working with you. But our work has been very focused on the project in hand, and very much around the work. So, apart from anything else, I'm looking forward to hearing a bit more about your background, your previous life, what led you to the three principles, and indeed to where you are now. So, yeah, perhaps you could just kick us off by saying a bit more about that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Christian. Well, I think I was always curious as to how some people seemed happier and some people didn't. And for years, I kind of looked around trying to find a reason for it. In fact, I was guiding people from a misunderstanding in the beginning. And luckily, I took some of my misunderstandings to Colette Grant. And she gave me a book by Mara Gleason, One Thought Changes Everything. And it was a drop the mic moment.
Mm-hmm.
Everything fell into place. Now, in truth, it was kind of a start of a journey because somebody was talking about these three principles and I had kind of a handle on them. Consciousness was a wee bit vague for me in the beginning. I think it took me about a year to get my head around. So then I started going to the three principles global community conferences. My son got involved. My wife was getting a little bit involved. I started to try and share what I'd seen, and then in sharing, learning at the same time. But 5 years ago, I really started to intensely kind of work with George Pransky, who was taught by Sid Banks. And at the same time, actually, it's going to be a weird thing to say, but attained a guru, Muji Baba. So, in listening to both and working with both, I started to get a real depth of understanding on who we are and how we operate and how we experience life through the psyche, the psychological experience.
So, could I ask you to pause there for a moment? And I'm wondering if I could um, take you back a bit, because you've spoken about um, working with other people and helping them, and possibly, in your words, pointing them in the wrong direction, and then meeting Colette. But I'm curious because we've just launched into that, we've just parachuted into that. And tell us a bit more about your life before that, and in what context were you guiding people, and because I think it's very interesting. The bits I do know about that, I think people will be very interested in that.
Yeah, okay. Well, what's coming up for me is there was a few things going on. My work was starting to get a little bit boring,
Your work was
getting a little bit boring.
No, what was your work?
Oh, beg your pardon, sorry. So my main job at that time, running a brand strategy agency, graphic design, brand strategy, bit of marketing. Involved in other companies, mentoring people, getting mentored by business people, helping my son start his companies. So there was a few bits and pieces I was up to, but in the main, in the branding agency, I didn't know at the time. I couldn't quite explain it, but now I can see it. I was getting bored.
Right. And how did that lead to your coming across Colette?
Like it's never a straightforward path, but Colette and I had been not she was a former client of mine, and we had been chatting around things like NLP, and we were both interested in. Um, I think I'm thinking about her company achieving our potential. How do people achieve their potential? And at the same time, people were accusing me of being too happy. I say people, I
Kind of
mean
that.
business people, uh, people in entrepreneurial Scotland, and because for whatever reason I was open to it, I started to question, how could I be too happy? I mean, it started to be like, don't be ridiculous. How can you be too happy? But because it came from more than one person, and also I was doing some other retreats with some other people, I was starting to get an idea that maybe there was something in what they were saying.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the retreats, in actual fact, there were some really unique retreats. I had some people coming to me and saying, oh, and now I know you really are happy. But they had sniffed something.
Mm-hmm.
And really, what they'd sniffed in me, which I see now, is I was overcooking.
Mm-hmm.
I was under stress.
Mm.
It's like happy stress, but I was still under stress.
Mm-hmm. And when you, I noticed, when you're making that circular movement, and is there a sense that your mind was idling on high, if I can put it that way, albeit it was all positive thoughts?
Yeah, well, thank you, honey. So naturally, not all positive, but it seemed to be a lot of positive, and I actually just thought that's what you did.
Uh-huh.
I thought more thinking was better, and when I was learning and thinking, and I thought that's what you do if you want to really get a handle, get the most out of life. It's you really got to think these things, and all the thoughts that were coming, I was going with every single thing that popped in my mind. I would follow, I'd go, I'd run it, and it was George Pransky that showed me that I was running at quite a high speed in my thinking, and that was having an effect.
And did you have some kind of insight around that?
Yeah, by that point, I was. My wife joked. She said, "You have like three a day." I was so curious that there was insights just coming, boom, boom,
Mm-hmm. But
guided.
I meant specifically into the fact that more wasn't necessarily better in terms of thoughts per moment, even if
Okay,
they're positive.
okay. At the same time, I was being guided by Muji.
Okay, so I was also going to ask about that because you said at the same time I acquired a guru, as if that was just something that could happen to people at the bus stop or something. I was going to
Well,
ask you to say more about that. How did that come about?
okay. So, in fact, yes, that's kind of how it came to me. Um, that route was interesting because I was chatting to a really good friend of mine, a dear friend of mine in South Africa, and she said, "Oh, lovely. I love what you're saying. Have you seen this guy?" So at that point, I was hoovering anything up to really get an understanding of how I was experiencing the world. So I started and was guided, and I was guided to stillness by Muji, total and absolute stillness. And I could say it's the first time in my life I had felt that. By that, I mean presence, I mean reality, not catching, not living in memory and not taking the memory and projecting it all the time. I was actually in the moment. And the first time it was for 15, 20 minutes in total and absolute nowness.
And was that, sorry, I've got all the prosaic questions. Was that through watching a video initially? Was that your initial? Yeah.
Many
Mm-hmm.
actually.
Yeah.
And then maybe
Wow.
after, let's say 30 hours,
Mm-hmm.
there was one guided meditation that Muji did that I dropped into, felt for the first time in the waking state, total and absolute neutrality. would say nirvana, total peace, total rest. And then came a power from that.
Mm-hmm. Say more about that.
Everything got clearer. I could see in a day what I was up to that I didn't need to be up to.
Mm-hmm.
My energy, if you like, one way of saying it, and this is, I don't know how accurate this is, I was hemorrhaging energy before. And
And if you
so,
were to make that super concrete, George, I mean, I love that image, but could you, if you were to make that super concrete, could you give a kind of before and after?
yeah, well, yeah, I mean, um, before I was getting a lot done, but now I could see, let's say, I'm just going to go this far. Half of what I was doing, I didn't need to do. It served no purpose.
Like an example, give us an example of that. One thing that you were doing that served no purpose, but used energy.
Yeah. Through a sense of excitement or anxiousness, when I woke up in the morning, I would be running every single scenario that would happen for my day before I even went to my day. So I'd be spinning the wheels. I'd be no traction. I wouldn't be doing anything about it. I would be thinking about it. And down this avenue, and now if I do this and they say that, and then I'll do this. And if that happens, I'll do this thing next. And so sometimes for 20, 25 minutes before I even get out of my bed in the morning, I would have worked. And I'm going to say pointlessly. Because after, when I didn't do that, I would just get up, have my breakfast, get in the car, go to work, and they would unfold the things I needed to do. And at least
Mm,
half of the things I thought I was going to do that day didn't even transpire. I was
mm,
burnt. I call it, and my teachers would call it, I was spinning the wheels. I was doing nothing. It was purposeless.
mm-hmm,
It was
mm-hmm.
pointless.
Lovely.
Now, the more and more I started to see that I had been up to a lot of projection, if you like, you could say
Mm-hmm,
worrying about what next, what next.
mm-hmm,
Uh, things that I thought I should or have to do or whatever, they fell away. And it felt to me like there's a feeling I try and equate when you're a child before you get caught up in all these ideas and concepts of
mm-hmm.
total freedom.
Okay.
And I was starting to feel, and I'm now, as I speak to you, feeling that.
Mm, very nice. Very nice. Yeah.
Is that enough detail? I can give
That's
more.
great. No, no, it's great. It's great. And I think it's for me, it's very helpful for me personally to kind of hear that, and it's something that I identify with. And I also notice that um, sometimes on my genuinely busiest days, when there are a lot of things for whatever reason on the calendar, and especially if let's say I haven't slept that well, for unrelated reasons the night before, the absolute best thing I can do to get through the day is just one thing at a time without overthinking it, without over planning it, and just giving the task in front of me that the best shot I can at and one thing at a time, and the next. And often it's quite astonishing to me that how well things have gone.
Hmm.
Well, minus the detailed plan in my head beforehand.
Yeah, it's lovely that you say that. And I'm going to just be a bit firm in this direction for a second. Um, I was so excited about all my thinking and had some ideas about how good that was, how powerful that was to be doing all that thinking, that there was arrogance showing up.
And again, could you elaborate on that? Because I find that hard to believe.
So it might have sounded like going to other people, maybe my wife, and saying, "Why you find this difficult? And it's not that difficult, and all you've got to do is this and that, and so on." And I mean, life's not, and you have less accidents if you're just getting on and thinking about things. Then I'd drop the cup.
Who says God doesn't have a sense of humor?
So I got curious about that.
Mm. Mm.
I got humbled.
Mm.
I say to people now, I think I can go under a door because I see now how amazing all of you are from the beginning, equal, totally the same, 100%. Full of
Mhm.
potential, full of brilliance from the word go, before I thought even.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm guessing, just to sort of complete that is a shift, because it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you're saying that previously you kind of saw the potential that could be helped by your um, high energy and great thinking, but this shifted to something sort of different by seeing the already present wholeness or something like that. Those are my words.
That's lovely, 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 lovely. To see that for the first time in many years without doing a single thing, we are all okay.
Mm.
Perfect, I would say. Nature, perfect nature.
Mm.
Nature and nature.
Nice, nice. So just to be provocative,
Please, honey, please do, please do, please do.
so what do you? I mean, I'm not at all disagreeing with you, but I'm curious. Well, let me tell a very short story first, and I'll tell you to explain my curiosity. I went to see a film last week, and it was one of these, the preview, if you're a member of the cinema club, and it was called "The Sound of Freedom," and it was about a very dark subject of child sex trafficking in South America. And at first, I wasn't sure about going to see it because I didn't know if it would be just too harrowing for me. And even as it started, I thought, I don't know if I can sit through this. But it was done in a way that there was hope and it wasn't harrowing. But I had an insight while I was watching that film, and it was really about the people who are partaking in this um, industry, this kind of vile trade, are have kind of forgotten who they are, and it made me feel even more um, committed, if that's the right word, to being part of sharing this, because it seemed to me in that moment very clear, and I guess it still does, that the more people understand who we are and how we operate, the less they are going to be involved in anything that hurts other people. So my
Beautiful.
question is, my provocative question is, what do you make of that when you come across, let's just call it bad behavior? And of course, bad is a judgment, and it's an individual judgment, and so on. But for brevity, what do you make of that when you talk about everybody's perfect right now?
Lovely, honey, lovely. Until we get a handle that our whole life experience is coming from the inside, it's not what's happening out there, it's what we think about what's happening out there, then humans are going to try and alter the world to get comfort and satisfaction and so on. So we're evolving, is what I see. We're evolving to see that it's been a misunderstanding, that we have to do something out there to be comfortable and to be at peace.
Mm.
And so, like you, I am only one. I am pointing for others in the hope, without judgment, all beings are innocent. That each of us, like I didn't see, I joke a bit with some people. I say, some of my teachers had me in a head hold and they were doing this. No, George, you're not listening. You got to get listening. Get listening. I didn't even know I wasn't listening. Wholeheartedly, I mean, as I am now to you.
Mm.
So, yes, we have systems for human behavior that's not acceptable, and we should continue with that, knowing that, as we know, as you and I know, teachers that are going into prisons and so on, and now prisoners teaching other prisoners that their experience does not come from the outside.
Mm-hmm. Lovely. Yeah. Because I do like to keep it real, if you know what I mean, and
Yes.
because I think when sometimes when you hear people talk, it could almost sound like a Hallmark card, and that it strikes me is because there's only so much language to describe the good and the positive and the pure and understanding and all of those things, but it's not anything like the superficiality of a Hallmark card. There is something really profound in this work, that does transform lives.
Yes,
And
100%.
you don't need to be in the absolute doldrums or the gutter to experience that transformation. But really, wherever we are, we can. This an understanding of the three principles can bring out a massive change and um, massive peace and quiet and internal quiet that you spoke about. Yeah, lovely.
I mean, I reckon I talk about now, there might be more, but I reckon I had about 8 fundamental misunderstandings.
Oh, so, yeah. Well, let's hear them.
So
Perfect.
they all point, of course, to the way that we experience. I'll just run through this for anybody that's maybe coming on that hasn't heard.
Uh-huh.
So the 3 principles, mind, conscience, and thought. I didn't even get my head around mind in the beginning. I thought they were talking about this mind,
Hmm.
not the universal mind,
Hmm.
which this is within.
Yeah.
The holistic mind. The best way that seems to work for me is the intelligence behind all life. This energy, the source, the soul. It doesn't matter what you call this, but just this. And then the fact that we've got this beautiful ability to think, but that not really looked at, they just come and they go. We've got to consciousify them for them to be brought to life so that we feel them. I call the feeling almost stage 4. It's not true. The 3 have got to work together, then the feeling, and then the next thing that happens is action, interaction, reaction from the feeling. Because we're living in the feeling of this 3 principles.
Hmm.
We're living in the feeling of our thought brought to life via consciousness. So each being that is reacting in a way that we know is not favorable for peace and equilibrium have usually, I'm going to say always, but usually a misunderstanding of how they're even experiencing life. They
Hmm.
think it's from the outside. You see? Now, until we get a handle, we're still going to put people in prison. We can't let
Yeah.
them out. It's creating havoc. Absolutely. And in actual fact, I'm hearing more and more and more trouble. More people. I mean, there's an awareness growing. I'm hearing more children going to do psychology as a thing later on. So I'm hearing that. I'm hearing more and more comments about, oh, I've got a sister, a brother, an uncle, an aunt. They're in trouble. They've committed suicide. They've done bad things, all from a misunderstanding that we get our experience from the inside about how we think. Now, the beautiful thing for me is because luckily I've been, I say luckily, unfortunately, but it's difficult to know, um, at least in the grace of my Master Muji Baba, in total quiescence, in total presence, in total reality, and reality not in the past, not in the future, here, now, enough. I've also noticed that there's a default set of qualities. I verified it personally. In that state of absolute quietness, love, peace, happiness, joy, confidence, innate wisdom, naturalness that comes from birth. The only thing that would get in the way of that to get me disturbing is some thinking. And I'm not demonizing thinking. I love my thoughts. I love turning my thoughts into images, imagination, into fantasies. I love playing movies in my mind. But before, I didn't realize that that was creating an effect with my feeling, my state through the senses. And so I was living in some kind of delusion, which just means I wasn't aware that I was creating illusions.
Mhm.
And now that I can see my illusions, there's kind of a separation. I'm not deluded. I know I'm making it up. It's all good. And I don't have to. And now I can just stay in total quiet if I want, no problem, no matter what I'm doing.
And thank you. That's very helpful. That and that kind of overview. And if I could bring you back, you said that um, before you came to understand where our feelings are coming from, essentially, that you saw you felt that you had maybe 8 principal misunderstandings, and I wonder if you'd be willing to say a bit more about those.
Yes. Number one,
Mhm.
I didn't know when my wife was my beautiful, beautiful, beautiful wife was pointing at me that she was having her own experience. I thought I had to do something about the pointing.
Mhm.
Now, you're trying to get the ground here. So let's say I'm not talking about, oh, you said you were going to put the bin out and you didn't. Okay. We didn't really get into trouble that way.
Mhm.
It would have been more, it would have been more, I would have been taking what I call a device, right? So I got anxious, and one of my devices was overbearingness. Okay.
Mhm.
And then she would say, why you, da, 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 and they would be into that stramash.
Mhm.
Now, because I hope she knows this, I think she knows this, I loved her unconditionally. When she pointed to me, I thought, I love you. I'm trying to do my best here. Today, she does that, nothing here.
Mhm.
I just wait till her equilibrium returns. And she's grateful for that. So it was one misunderstanding.
Mhm. Lovely.
You want another?
Yes, please. Because I think it helps people to
Oh, I will
the
love it.
sense of what what this is about, why it's helpful to know it, and what it looks like before and after is helpful for people because it's so difficult to talk about these formless principles, and or we can use language that comes back to Hallmark cards.
Yes, 100% on it. And so another one was, so I'm just laughing at me, honestly, what I must have been up to. Okay. I didn't know that as my son was growing up, that there would be a point where I would effectively, he or I would take the stabilizers off and he would be off and running. I thought because I'd given myself this image, this idea of dad, that if he came and asked me something, I would have to know the answer or I wasn't a good dad.
Omniscience came with the role.
And so how it transpired was um, he would ask me something that actually I knew nothing about, and I would talk like I knew what I was talking about. Okay.
Mm.
Now, how it manifested was because he knew, because he's a brilliant being, as we all are, that I was full of shit. my credibility in his eyes dropped. And so maybe next time he'd be a bit wary about asking a question, or he certainly wouldn't be taken for anything I said, and maybe he wouldn't even come and ask, just through the misunderstanding that I didn't realize how brilliant we all are, and that to a certain point in the human kingdom, if I can say it that way, there was stuff I could show him as he grew up, and then afterwards he would just be experiencing life like me, and we could share stuff. I now call him not my son, I call him my brother.
Mm.
Second misunderstanding.
Mm. Mm.
Third misunderstanding. I thought my happiness was something to do with the place I was in. So go to Mallorca.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I thought my happiness was contingent on lots of outside stuff.
Weather, place, people, things.
And then one day, let's say a few years ago, I was standing in Mallorca and I was like, this is the same. I feel the same now as I feel in Edinburgh. It's nothing to do with this place. It cannot be. I was watching some fish in a pool and I was like, oh, it was very ordinary. It was like, oh, it's just fish in a pool. Before I was creating all sorts of fantastical ideas about how Mallorca fish in a pool would be absolutely the place I always had to be. And it came through the power of presence. When I was standing watching the fish, I was doing nothing else but watching the fish. I wasn't cooking up ideas. I wasn't thinking about work. I wasn't thinking about anything. Just watching the fish, enjoying the fish. I know that the word, from my point of view, that the word joy also means self. I was as myself. Enjoy. I was enjoying. I was in self, in the moment, and it was real. I call it reality. I wasn't fantasizing. Past, future, past, future. And it felt the same as in Edinburgh.
Because being here now is an internal experience, or it's nothing to,
Yeah.
and
In
it's
fact,
available in any moment, whatever is
I'm
going
going to
on.
go even more punchy, and I'm going to say, when I figured out what the point of life was for me, but I think the point of life was now,
The point
and
of
now,
life is now.
and now, and now, and now.
Very cool. Very cool.
I love that you're saying
It,
that, honey. It's very cool. It is actually. I was running so hot. I was very seldom being cool.
mm,
I just mean stable. Cool means stable to me. Neutral. Neutral.
yeah. And it seems to be that being here now is nothing to do with time.
Beautiful.
I was introduced to the idea of living in the present in recovery, and I was thinking, what is the present? Is it kind of 5 minutes?
Yeah, try and catch
And
it.
yeah, yeah, and it's literally time does not exist, and so being in flow, we're being in now. Now, obviously, if a clock was on the wall, it would be moving, but that's not the experience that time, past, future, it does not exist. It's simply being.
Beautiful. Let's dive into that a bit more. That's so cool you said that. So,
Mm,
absolutely not the case that human time, because our whole human existence is attached to time. We're not saying that. We're saying that when each of us are in the now, or whatever way, we don't have enough language for it. We just mean in reality, with nothing to get, nothing to be, nothing to do, just this and this. Isness is here, is now, is watching, or tasting, or doing. Then it's timeless. No time pressure, Our soul feels the rest of it. I mean, we feel. We are the soul. And I didn't even know that was available. Thankfully, other beauties like you pointed for me. Thank you. And I'm not saying that each of us would, could, should live doing nothing. I'm not saying go to a mountain. I'm not saying that. I'm not going to India. I'm not saying that. Saying just from this nowness, without loading, thinking that memories are required to live in this moment, not required. To anticipate what next, which we never got right, not required. Then go to make dinner here, have a new idea, more creativity, spontaneity, or planning. From here, I know to plan. I need onions, I need mushrooms, I need just it's cleaner, it's got more power, more traction, less dropping of the cup. I say to people that I've lived more in the last 5 years than I did in the 30 before. And what I mean is more reality. I was in fantasy so much before, which is great. We have this power of fantasy. Absolutely wonderful that we have that.
Yeah.
I just didn't know I was living in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Lovely. Lovely. George, without even planning it, we very neatly come back to the title of the conversation, which was Power of Presence. So that's marvelous. That's marvelous. I'm also noticing that we have some participants on the call. Are you up for some questions if there are any?
Absolutely. 100%.
So if you would like to, to ask a question or share anything, please do just unmute yourself and come in. And I'm going to just pin George's video. Okay. And we'd love to know what prompted you to join, if you even feel comfortable telling us that. But you will need to unmute yourself. Well, oh, Richard, good. Are you good? Do you have a question, Richard? I can't hear you. I don't know if there's maybe. Richard, were you? We can't hear you, I'm afraid. I don't know what you're unmuted, but I don't know what the issue is. Could it be a button on your computer? Or by all means, put it in the chat, and I'll ask George on your behalf. Yeah, you're unmute, but I think there must be an issue with your mic. Well, if you get, maybe you'll be able to figure that out, or if you want to go to type a question in the chat, I can ask George. And in the meantime, George, if I come back to you, is there anything that we haven't talked about yet that you were kind of hoping to touch on this afternoon?
No, another thing, oh, thank you, honey. Beautiful. Another misunderstanding I had before was I thought that I had to have a really clear and detailed agenda for any meeting I had.
So this meeting with no agenda.
Look, 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 look. So one of the joys I've had is showing up to every being, every beautiful being, every meeting, even the projects I'm working on, with the tiniest of pin in the board, if I could say that. Because
With the
my misunderstanding, this is a wee bit elusive, so I'll do my best.
Mhm.
The misunderstanding I had was that to get the best out of a meeting, that I had to have had the whole agenda scoped out, not knowing that that meant I was running a meeting from my memory. And so
Mm.
now I show up for the new meeting.
That's what a lovely insight. What a lovely insight. And yeah, and there's so many variations in that. One of the things that people in recovery in 12-step recovery groups do is, people take turns to sort of tell the story, from to the group. And it's very much the culture that is just whatever comes out is meant to come out. But recently I've noticed one or two people making notes or having and I'm thinking, oh no, 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 no. Because and I know that they're doing it because they want it to be a better, but actually the very best is just what comes out on the day. Even if it's less fluent, less logical, less ordered, it's what comes out in the day that is always the most authentic and the most touching in a
Yeah,
situation like that.
that's lovely. And then from that place of showing up with, tiny pin in the board of what we might be up for,
Mm-hmm.
going to talk about finance, or we're going to go and talk about operations, or whatever it is we're going to talk about. Because then I noticed that the point of a meeting was to find out more, not to take what you had
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
one part. I don't mean that meeting can't be about delivering something you've discovered. That should feel fresh. Just the meetings seemed to be their best when they were so spontaneous with a little bit of a guidance of what we were going to try and figure out in the meeting. That's the first thing I want to say about that. And also, to my way of seeing, when people are, to my way of seeing, when people are taking notes, because of my understanding, I know that I don't know why they're doing it. I stay in the unknown. They might be doing it because of one reason or another reason, or thousands of reasons, or their state's up and down. I don't know. And then somebody takes a note and you think, oh, they're the note people. They're not. They're just in a state, or we just don't know. So being available to anybody, whatever they're up to, in the grace of ourselves, seems to have its own power to be available for anyone without judgment, open. And then we beings do incredibly well from that, in my experience.
Mm, nice, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. I know Richard's going to try again.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yeah, yeah. We just have a few minutes left because we have to stop about 10 to. But Richard, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. Hi. I'm in Florida. I'm not one of the crazy ones here. I like to think. Um, I attended. I've been dabbling in the three Ps. From a friend introduced me, and I went to a weekend retreat by Win Morgan, if you know Win.
Mhm.
And that was very good. But I I think where I'm struggling, and I even think that in the retreat I probably frustrated when I'm looking to grab I'm looking for a how to, or what do I do to get this. I realize every time I ask, well, what should I do? What can I do? What exercise? Is there a how-to manual or something? I always get nothing. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to, and I get frustrated with that, and I realize that my questions frustrate people like you. But what I've been doing is I watch YouTube videos on the three principles. I've read a few books. I have a friend to talk about it. But I guess I don't know. I guess I love what you've said about seeing your being in delusion because you think the illusions are real, and that and I do see that. I guess I'm just looking for more to do, or some guidance of some sort.
Lovely. Thank you for that. Lovely. And everything you just said is so normal to me. And no frustration.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I mean, I remember roughly in the middle, what I call it, the middle of my trying to figure this out. I might have been throwing toys out the pram in frustration. So what happens is we get an intellectual understanding of the three principles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But in order for it to move from our intellect, our small mind, into our deep mind, it has to mean something for us. So let me go further with that. I would then ask you, what in your life are you having any challenges with that you could disclose? And I would talk to that, and you have an opportunity then in real time, in real life, to see how it means something to you. It has to mean something for you. It's got to be a direct seeing, direct experience. Once you get the idea in your intellect. So can you share anything in real life, your work, whatever, that you maybe be a little pickle you're in, a little something, and then we just point there. If you don't mind.
Well, like a lot of times in my life, I right now I feel very stuck. I feel lethargic, like I can't seem to get myself to the gym or doing any physical exercise. And I know that's keeping me back.
Beautiful. That's enough. That's enough.
Okay.
That's enough. That's beautiful. Beautiful. So I'll point to me again, what I was up to. Now, my subjective experience will be slightly different from yours, but they're hopefully what I'm going to say will have some crossover. Okay. I didn't realize that I was regurgitating old thinking on everything. I was trying to think my way forward, but my thinking was coming from the past.
Hmm.
And when I was doing that enough and didn't realize it, and maybe over a few years, what I now know to be true is if you keep thinking old, there's a staleness happens. People use words like boring. Life becomes boring. It's not fresh anymore. You go to taste a cup of coffee and you're thinking about what it's going to taste, would be an example. Before, just leave that alone and taste it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Now, there's a reason for it. When you were about 3 or 4, you might have had a few hundred memories. By the time you have to this age, you've got millions.
Hmm.
But any anxiousness gets us thinking we need to go and look back and use something for the future. No, that's all. Leave it. You've got that anyway. So it's just clearing your mind. I'm saying it's an undoing. To move forward, do nothing. be in the moment. Now, and now, and now. And just watch. Enough, maybe a minute. Nothing to do. Nothing to get. No past. No future. Don't touch. You've got the ability not to touch that thinking. No now. Don't think. Just watch. They're subtle, you see, they're subtle. Don't touch them. Don't touch them. Stay out of them. And then feel the breath. All you're experiencing is the hint of a new moment. It's fresher. Oh, lovely superstar. Lovely. We've just forgotten how to not do all that. A child lives in the moment, not living off the memory. Hasn't got caught in that little illusion of the memory being important. It's not important. All your memories for doing things, driving a car and everything, that's still there. You're not going to forget that. But to be fresh to the new road, the road you think you drive down all the time, you're not fresh to it if you're thinking that. You're not open, you're in your head. The last time you were on the road, the 5 times you're on the road, the whole last year on the road, rather than, oh, actually the road's different, the bushes are different, the flowers are different. Noticing that which is real. And now I've rushed through that a little bit for us. Maybe you got a hint of what I was pointing at.
I mean, basically, it sounds like you're asking me to clear my mind, and that's, I mean, to put it in other words.
But not a doing. You see, it's another thing to do. Clear the mind.
Oh, okay.
And
Right.
undo it. Take your hands off the wheel of your mind. Not doing, not. Nita.
Right.
Now, that's awkward in the beginning. Because we're so compelled to go with our thinking.
Well, like I've heard in the past, you know how the mind is when you say don't think about an elephant.
So that's a doing. That's why any doing will just add.
Yeah.
If you say don't think, you're adding. It's a doing.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying nothing. You have this power.
Right.
Now, that takes just a little bit of practice in the beginning. Eventually, it becomes every day, no problem. So the 3
Okay.
principles point to the fact that any thought brought to life, you'll feel, even if it's a memory. And the feeling can be stale. Some people get depressed because they're living on their past all the time, but not even noticing they're doing it. Their state's dropping in kind of staleness and depression. Now, all a human has to do to get a fresh moment in anything you're doing is not touch. Not touch the past, not touch the future. Don't touch anything. Drink the tea, but drink it like it's the first time. Don't try and imagine drinking it. Don't think about drinking it. Drink it, experience it new, and freshness comes. Enough of that, days, weeks, and suddenly going to the gym would be no problem. You might even be.
George,
We've got to go.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry it's a great conversation. Thank you so much. I'm afraid I do have to end here. Richard, one thing I would just say very generally is in terms of what to do next. I know everybody says stay in the conversation, but do stay in the conversation. Listen to people like George and but whatever appeals to you, whatever feels juicy, that's the bit. Go with that. That's
Okay.
that's my thought. And I'm sorry to be so abrupt, and thank you all for joining us, and especially George McRae. Thank you for being here today. Do you, if people want to contact you, how should they go about that?
Email.
Email, and the email is I forgot to mention that you're the illustrator of George Pransky's book.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, Richard,
uh-huh.
have a look at that. Yeah. But email me, George at weareignite.group. No problem.
And I can put that in the up with the recording. So thank you so much. Thank you everybody for being here. But most of all, George, thank you. It was wonderful. Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
So,
Bye.
yeah. So